Hello again and welcome to Shed Talk, my weekly magazine video series looking at the keeping, breeding and showing of cage birds, with a particular focus on the exhibition style budgerigar. And as promised in the last episode, this episode will mainly focus on the budgerigars, because what we're going to do is I'm going to start the sorting process of what I've got left, what the budgerigars that I've got in the shed so far, to see which of those I wish to keep for next year's breeding season. So that's what this episode will focus on. In fact, this episode and probably the next episode will look at that. As always, if you enjoy the episode, don't forget to hit the like button. All the likes help the channel to grow and promote the hobby slightly more wider in across YouTube and to a slightly wider audience. If you're not yet a subscriber, then do of course subscribe to the channel, and if you want early notifications, then do hit the bell for those early notifications. Right, sorting the budgerigars. What we'll begin with is I'll talk briefly about how I go about assessing the budgerigars. So there's a couple of things that I personally do before I even start getting the birds out, have a look at them and do that assessment. And the first one is to remind myself of what the BS standard is, or if you're not in the UK, whatever your local standards are, all very similar. So just to remind myself of what the pictorial ideal of the budgerigar should look like. Now, I know most people will say, or maybe not most people, but there is a view that the pictorial standard that the BS are using is out of date. So but it's a very good starting point. So it's a good starting point to remind yourself of what that budgerigar should look like, and certainly what it shouldn't look like, in terms of head, shape of the body, the angle, the way it stands, and the position of flights and tails. And also quite often you'll see that there's a measurement that suggests the sort of proportions, the general proportion of the bird overall, and whilst the actual numbers linked to that are probably, again, most birds are slightly bigger than that, but it gives a good idea of what the proportion of the bird should look like. So that's one of the things that I will do, is just remind myself of what the ideal standard looks like, and I will keep that up whilst I'm assessing the birds. And it's always nice to have a picture of it up in your bird room if you can. So that's the first thing that I will do, is look at the pictorial standard. I mentioned that there is a view that the modern budgerigar has surpassed that, or is slightly different than that. So the other thing that I will do is I will look at the birds that are winning, and photographs of the birds that are winning at the major shows. Again, it gives me a chance to have a look at what those what judges are picking out in terms of those key features, and again what I'm aiming for. Unlikely I'm ever going to achieve it, but what I am aiming for. And then finally, there are a couple of articles, and I've mentioned these before, that were in Cage and Aviary Bird, that were produced by Alan Marchant, and he talks about a matrix that he uses when he's looking at his birds, when he's making his assessment of his bird. The main one that I will use is the one that talks about the key features that he's looking for. There is a second one which is about how you use it, and that comes more when you're pairing up at the beginning of the breeding season. So perhaps we'll talk about that at the beginning of the breeding season. But this is the main one that I use in terms of his matrix, so his scoring system. And what I've done is I already had a scoring system that I was using, and what I've done is I've used this as the basis for my my new scoring system, amended scoring system that I use for my when I'm assessing the birds. And what I'll do is, when I get the birds out and when we go through the scoring system or the birds that I've chosen to keep, I'll run through both the matrix and my scoring system that I'm using. I use a spreadsheet to do it, and that spreadsheet will be available on the C0ck Facebook page, and I will post a link to it at the beginning of the week after this video has come out, so you get a chance to see what it is that I am using. So those are the main things that I will do prior to assessing the birds. The other thing you need to think about is how many birds you want to keep for the next year. So we all know, we've got limited amount of room. We'd all like to keep, hundreds and hundreds of birds. For me, I don't have a massive amount of room. I'm only probably going to have next year 8 to 10 breeding cages. So there's no point in me keeping many more birds than I got to fill those breeding cages. So I've made a decision this year that my plan is to keep around about 10 to 12 hens and about 10 to 12 cock birds that will give me 24, but certainly no more than 30 birds that I want to keep for the coming breeding season. So that gives me a target of how many birds that I'm looking for. Right, what I'll do now then is I'm going to get the birds out. I will do my assessment, and then we will come back and look at the birds that I've chosen. What I will probably do, what I will do, is I will get the cock birds out first and do an assessment of the cock birds, and then I will show you probably the top 10 to 12 birds that I've decided to keep, and at that stage I will talk about how I scored them. Well, I've now assessed all of the cock birds, and we will take a look at some of those, a few of those, very shortly. Like I say, I assessed them on the Alan Marchant Matrix, roughly, and so the areas that they're scored on are, and I won't run through what each of these mean because I did do a full video on that a little while ago, and I will try and put a link at the top of the screen up there somewhere, hopefully. If I can find the video, I'll put a link to it. Otherwise, just flick back through the various previous videos and you should be able to find it. So the areas that we look at are back skull, linear feather, length and size, the feather type, mask and spots, and flecking. The other area I look at is balance and deportment, and so just because it's an area that is really lacking in my birds, and that's also in the matrix, so it is an area that I want to focus on. So and I score those out of 5. There are a couple of areas where I'm still wondering whether to include it, and that's the area around feather type, because I put heavily feathered bird scores 5, a very yellow bird, so very buff bird scores 5, and a very yellow bird scores 1, which isn't quite correct in my view, because you actually want something a little bit more balanced. Nothing wrong with having a really heavy feathered bird if you're then going to cross it to something that is less heavily feathered. A heavy buff bird to a heavy buff bird is just going to, in my view anyway, produce problems in terms of feather problems such as cysts and other issues around that heavy feathered bird. So I am still wondering whether I might adapt that, and I will think about that over the coming months. What I then do is, those of you that watched previously will know, I then gives it an overall score, and I then have a weighted score based on its age. So the older the bird is, that score will drop based on its overall age. This is something I do just in order to try and keep my breeding team relatively young. The two scores, I've changed the way I do it now, that two scores are now joined together, and I get an average score based on their overall score and their weighted score, and it's the average score that I then take. So the outcome of that is I have managed to find 12 cock birds that I'm planning to keep. There were 2 in the keep a flight, or the previous breeding flight that have now been going to be moved into the sales flight. So it's a relatively reasonable mix. So I've got some of this year's birds, I think it's 3 of them are this year's birds. Vast majority of them are, or the next highest is probably last year's birds. And then I've got a few birds that are at 5 years old, so really right at the very, very end. Most of those birds that are at that top end are actually outcrosses that I've either brought in the year before last or last year. So I'm hoping to get one more round off of those birds. Anyway, so touch wood, 5 might be a little bit old, but we'll find out in the breeding season. We'll pop those in the breeding cage quite early. In terms of families, I try to keep families. The families are a good mix, so I've got a mix of yellow face, green and blue family. I've got nothing from the grey family, although I do have a couple of grey birds or grey-green birds in the breeding team, but they are not actually of that family. I think my expectation is that some of the hens will probably be from the grey family. Anyway, so that's the and then as I say, there's a couple of the outcross, and one of those outcrosses is the Lucino, of which I'm hoping I will begin to get a Ino family from. So there we go, that is the all of the cock birds done. In the next episode we will have a look at, I will get the hens out and I'll do an assessment of the hens. As I promised, we'll have a quick look at a few of the birds that have made the grade. hope you enjoyed that quick look at a few of the birds that made the keeper cage or make the breeding team for next year. Let me know your thoughts on the ones that you've seen. There are a few others, and we will look at them when we get down to the breeding season at the end of September, beginning of October time. As I say, next episode we'll look at the hens, but until then, as always, do stay safe and enjoy your birds.